The current economy in South Africa can only be described as being extremely tough. What's been happening is that strike activity or labor unrest has negatively impacted directly via lower output in the mining and manufacturing industries, and indirectly via loss of income, what was already an economy that was slowing down. And so what we've seen is GDP growth averaging only 1.3% in the first half of the year, and this is related to or associated with long-term GDP growth of 3.5%. So the current environment is a significant underperformance of our long-term growth potential. We've got to break it down really into the different industries of the economy. So if one looks at the economy from an industry perspective, we can note that the industries that are driven by household consumption, in other words, the South African consumer, have been slowing down. So we've seen retail sales come off, we've seen vehicle sales come off. Within retail, durable goods components, particularly furniture retailing, has been particularly hard hit. And that has been attributable to several factors, including the fact that government has slowed down, including the fact that the banking sector has pulled back on unsecured lending, rightly so, and also the fact that interest rates have begun an upward journey. If we look at the productive sectors of the economy, like manufacturing and mining, for example, well, those have been negatively impacted by labor unrest. However, there are some bright spots. The agricultural sector has been outperforming, as has the construction sector. As a country, entrepreneurship is gaining a lot of airtime, and I think as an option, particularly for experienced corporate professionals who would like to try their hand at entrepreneurship, and given the fact that they have experience, business experience, and they would have probably accumulated some capital, it is definitely a very clever way and in a very efficient and risk mitigating way to start your own business. The first thing to explain is, or to highlight is the context behind that downgrade. So over the last couple of years, government has supported the South African economy and prevented what would have been much weaker growth than we've already experienced. And they've done this by accelerating government expenditure. However, the cost of this accelerated government expenditure has been larger budget deficits, which just means that government has been living beyond its means. It's been living beyond its means because it could. It was in a very strong financial position prior to the recession of 2008 and 2009. But because we've been living beyond our means for so long, our debt has increased quite significantly. And that's part of the reason for these downgrades. The second thing to note is that we aren't the only country that has been downgraded. In fact, these downgrades have been a global phenomenon. So we're not alone in this. However, what downgrades do tend to do is that they essentially are an assessment by a trusted source or a trusted analyst of countries' ability to repay their debts. And to the extent that you get a downgrade, what's actually being said is that your ability to repay your debt has declined relative to where it was previously. And if that is the case, then what tends to happen is that your cost of funding increases for the whole economy, including for franchisees. So you tend to see borrowing costs increasing ever so slightly, and I suppose that would be the most direct impact of sovereign ratings downgrades.